Tonight on Need to Know, the holidays are the most wonderful time of the year for cyber criminals. How to protect you and your information during this festive hacking season. That's next. Also on the show, an act of hatred leads to a show of unity through a craft activism project started here in Rochester. A project bringing together people from around the world. And we'll meet a local artist specializing in a unique form of vintage design, whose work has appeared in music videos and album art. Don't go anywhere. Need to Know starts right now. Online holiday shopping isn't only convenient, but it also happens to open up a world of gift ideas, not to mention free shipping, right at your fingertips. Unfortunately, that means it also opens you up to a greater risk of cyber hacking. Clicking on one wrong link can instantly release your personal information to cyber criminals. Joining me to explain how it happens and what we can do to stay safe during online shopping is Matt Davis, Manager of Information Security at ESL. And welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So talk to me about, I'm curious as to what is the single most common threat that happens, especially during the holidays when people are perusing through apps and different websites searching for that perfect holiday gift.
Yeah, the most common threat that we typically see during this time of year is email phishing. And what that means is it's an email that comes through. It looks like it's a legitimate email, but it's trying to get you to perform an action or download a file or click a link. There's a lot of popular schemes that happen during the holidays with these emails, whether it be a sale that may seem too good to be true, a package that you may have shipped and it pretends that the package didn't make it to its recipient, or even gift cards to particular shows or stores you may be shopping at.
Wow, interesting. So in terms of the information that cyber criminals are looking for and how they use it, what do they want and why do they need it?
Yeah, there's two different types of information they're really looking for here. First is financial information. So this could be things like bank account information, credit cards, banking routing numbers, your account numbers. And this is going to help them make financial gain. That's generally their goal when they're dealing with this type of fraud. They're also looking for personal information about you. So name, address, social security number, things they could use to impersonate your identity with the end goal, again, being financial gain.
So let's dig into some proactive measures that people can take. I know they're watching, they're thinking, well, what can I do? I mean, I was preparing for this interview with you and I was getting a little worried myself, trying to buy different things online that I need to ship all over the place. So what can we do? What are some realistic things that we can do to help prevent something like this from happening?
Yeah, there's two main things, really educating yourself and remaining vigilant. And what do I mean by that? So education, knowing some of the things to look for when these fraudsters are coming after you. When you're looking at emails, for example, make sure you know the sender. Look for links in there, hover over the links and make sure that it's going to the place that you expect. If you're ever unsure, you can always call the retailer, whoever may be sending you the information in there. Also vigilant, so monitor your accounts, credit reports, credit card statements. Look for signs of fraudulent activity or things you don't recognize. The quicker you catch these things, the easier it is to recover from them.
So if I am at the airport, because I know one thing that I read about was just being careful in terms of tapping into public Wi-Fi. I had this conversation with my husband about this. So I'm at the airport, I'm traveling, and I realize I forget to buy something for Uncle Edward, and I want to save face. So I jump on airport Wi-Fi to make that purchase. Why is something like that maybe not such a great idea?
Yeah, so Wi-Fi like you would find at the airport, that's public Wi-Fi. So not only are you able to access it for your shopping needs, but potential fraudsters can get on there as well. Because they're on the same network then, it's easier for them to capture traffic. This traffic could contain personal information about you, bank information, credit cards, that sort of thing, and it kind of takes down that barrier of entry for them to get that information.
And then I know that you mentioned something when you are on websites. If you see a deal that's too good to be true, that you might want to pause. That might be a red flag. So what exactly does that mean, something that's too good to be true, and how can you determine whether or not a website is actually legitimate?
Yeah, so this is something we see around the holiday season a lot, whether it's going right to a website, if it's advertisements on a website, or an email. If it's a deal that seems very good and almost seems impossible, what we usually recommend is either calling up that retailer, verify with them, or close out of that website and just search for that retailer and go to that website independently and see if that comes up with that same deal on there, kind of get some independent verification.
So I know just because you make a purchase from a legitimate website, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are totally in the clear, because as you mentioned before, you can get an email after a purchase is made that has some information that may or may not be factual. So we stopped by ESL to see you earlier this week, and you actually walked us through this demonstration to show us exactly what you mean by that. So we'll take a look at this demo for our viewers so they can get a better understanding.
Often during the holiday seasons, we see an uptick in malicious or phishing emails that target individuals. What you see up on the screen here is an example of a popular tactic used during the holidays. Oftentimes, we send gifts to friends and family, and that's done via popular shipping services. The attackers know this, and they take advantage of it. Here's an example of a phishing email that an attacker used to target people during the holidays. You can see up at the top here that the subject says delivery notification refused by recipient. This makes it seem as if a package couldn't be delivered and one of our valuable gifts that we tried to ship didn't make it to its recipient. The goal of this is to try to get the recipient to click on one of the links contained within this email. However, there are some key things that we can look at in this email to show that it is not legitimate. First, if we look at the sending address up at the top here, we can see that it looks like it's coming from a customer service department of a popular shipping carrier. However, when we look more closely, it's coming from a domain called shippingupdate.net. This is not a popular shipping company that I'm aware of, and thus could indicate that this email is a phishing attempt. Next, as we scroll down, you're going to notice a company logo would have been up at the top here. If we hover over this, we're going to see a URL or a link where you could navigate on the web. When we look at the actual address you would navigate to, again, it's going to that suspicious shippingupdate.net, not a company address that we're familiar with. Moving down, there's a couple links also contained in this email. One is a tracking number referencing where the delivery was refused. If we hover over that link, again, we're presented with this suspicious web address that it's trying to get us to navigate to. You're going to notice the same thing down here on the account link. Again, you have that suspicious URL that it's trying to get us to follow. So overall, it's trying to take advantage of a typical activity that many consumers do during the holidays and trying to trick us into performing an action. In this case, it's clicking on a link. As we examine this links and we hover over here, we notice that suspicious domain. Typically what will happen if one was to click on these links, will either be taken to a web page that's going to ask us to disclose confidential information. Could be things such as name, address, social security number, bank account information, things attackers could use to either steal our identities or make money off from us. The other possibility that this link could take us to is a website that contains a computer virus. Therefore, when you click on the link, your computer becomes infected, and then the attacker can take over your computer and use it to gather information on you or make money in other types of schemes.
So Matt, if I bought my mom a necklace, for example, for Christmas, and I send it to her, how are hackers able to track that purchase so much so that I get an email similar to the one that we just saw that says, hey, by the way, we're having some issues delivering this package, click on this link and you can see where it's going, or whatever the case may be. I guess at what point along the way can someone's information get compromised?
Yeah, so almost everything about us as individuals is out on the internet today, whether it be on social media or shopping sites or other just information gathering sites. So attackers can almost build a dossier on us as individuals and know our shopping habits, carriers we may use, and then they can use that to make these phishing schemes much more realistic.
So just in terms of before we close, are there any other popular holiday, cyber risks that we should be aware of that we have not mentioned yet?
Yeah, besides just the typical emails that you get, just pay attention to those advertisements that are out there on web pages. Just like the sales that come through email, these advertisements can try to get you to click through them and disclose information or download bad software to your computer. So be careful when you're browsing the web, too.
And then those are the advertisements that I see them, they pop up on the right side of the screen when I'm searching for something.
Absolutely.
So those are the ones to really be careful of. Very good. All right, well, we are out of time, but Matt Davis, thank you so much for breaking this down for us and also for sharing tips on how to prevent cyber hacking, not only during the holidays, but this is relevant throughout the year as well. For more information, go to our website, wxxinews.org, and click on the Need to Know link. It was the work of a lone gunman who killed 11 congregants at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh just 2 months ago. And it is the work of a fiercely dedicated group of citizens around the globe that is reminding us that in the aftermath of that tragedy, there is more good in the world than evil, and that love will always blot out hate. How are they doing it? Through a craft activism project started through a Facebook group by Rochester's Hinda Mendel. The result? The creation of thousands of hand-knit Jewish stars with hearts in the center, placed outside that synagogue and all around Pittsburgh. Joining me to share more about what's next for this project focused on commemoration and community, our local project contributors, Lauren Titanis, Catherine Tronalone, and Meg Wailars. Welcome, and I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this project launches from this Facebook group started here in Rochester, but people from all around the world, Costa Rica, New Zealand, Australia, and more are all a part of it. And so I want to know, just to begin, what was it? Life is so busy for so many people. What was it when you saw this post that made you say, I don't care how busy life is, I have to be involved in this? And Lauren, I'll start with you.
So it's interesting. I work at Jewish Family Service here in Rochester, so I'm very connected with the Jewish community, and we all decided that while our agency is doing some stuff, I wanted to do my own work towards this project. And I love to crochet, so this was the perfect meshing of the two things. So I made 11 stars. I crocheted 11 of these stars, and they all went out to Pittsburgh. So I really appreciate that this wonderful project that was created by Hinda and her other friend. So yes, it's great.
Yeah.
Oh, for me, excuse me, I know Hinda from a different project, and so I really felt like this is so important to her. She has such a great mind for these types of things, and for me, it's to show that my heart mourns with them, and that there's people who will not stand up for this type of violence and tragedy in our world. We just won't stand for it.
For me, when I first heard about it, it struck me because I used to live in Pittsburgh, and neighborhood is very important. Mr. Rogers is key in Squirrel Hill and everywhere in the city, but it's a physical manifestation of saying, I mourn with you. My heart is with you. It just struck me as something I needed to be a part of.
Well, Hinda Mendel was a recent guest on Need to Know, and she would have been here with all of us today, but there was she had something else that she had to take care of. But she was the one who really introduced me to this term, craft activism. So I want to know. I know that this is probably craftivism. We also hear it. So there are likely people tuning in right now, and they're thinking, "What is that? And how does craft serve as a form of activism?" So who would like to explain that for our viewers?
Craftivism goes back a long way. I mean, it goes back to knitting for the troops during the First World War, actually during the Civil War. It's a way for people at home, or away from the center of the fray, as it were, to take part. And for a lot of us, it's through craft. The Pussy Hat Project was a form of craftivism. The giant crocheted panel of Harriet Tubman and Susan B. Anthony, those were also craftivism projects. It's networking and grassroots community building, often among women, and often far-flung, but we get together and sort of like joining the squares of an Afghan. It's one small thing, but you start adding them together, and before you know it, you can cover a whole city.
And I think what's amazing is the power of social media through all of this. And it's been amazing to see the project really come to life. So it was first getting all of the stars together, and then I know that they collected them, and then seeing them being placed everywhere and seeing the pictures and the videos of the other people that were down in Pittsburgh really getting connected with the project as well. And they might not necessarily have crocheted or participated in that way, but they were giving our work down there. So it was great to see and kind of spot where, you know, our stars were hanging up.
We all love to see our own projects and see where it ended up.
Yeah.
So explain for people who don't know the significance of the Jewish Star of David, and also the idea of the symbolism of putting that heart right there in the middle.
Well, it's kind of a tough question, but I feel like everyone kind of made these symbols that were similar in some way, like we all are similar in some way, but different in our own ways too. And so I think this overwhelming theme of like, this community is hurting, but our hearts are with you. To me, that's the message that I took from it, and kind of what motivated me to find the time in my busy life to do the work.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, as crafters, we were talking a little bit before we started, that you created your sweater, you created your scarf, and I am amazed by the work that you do. How did you approach these specific pieces? Oh, Meg, you're I'm losing you, Meg. You rolled your eyes at me.
I was casting about for the longest time. I can crochet and I can knit, and I was looking at patterns for both, and then thinking about yarn, and did I have it? And I was just at a complete loss of what to do. And I was at Michael's looking around, and I found charms that were the Tree of Life.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
after I stopped crying in the charm aisle at Michael's, that was it. And I went home and I had felt and actually cut 3 layers, and the one triangle was enfolded in 2 others. So it was kind of like a hug. And then I had the red heart, and I sewed the charm in the middle.
That's beautiful.
And that finally is what spoke to me.
Beautiful.
And they were fun.
I know for me, I happened to have this this yarn right here, the blue with different colors, kind of variegated, and then I put a big red heart in the center. I know that the blue is very symbolic for the Jewish culture, but I also liked that it was variegated, so it wasn't just, it had more life to it. And so I really, was like praying for everyone during my time when I was working on this project. It was a fairly simple pattern to do, to work up crochet-wise, but I know that, these pieces are going to be everywhere in Pittsburgh, and I wanted to make sure that they looked good for everyone to see. So.
Well, I know that it was last month when 40 volunteers hung more than 2,000 hearts in Pittsburgh, outside the Tree of Life Synagogue and around the city. I'm curious to know, what type of reaction have you heard from either the congregants, neighbors, people that live in the city, just in terms of reaction to seeing this display of love and unity?
I've heard very positive reactions. I have friends from when I lived in Mount Lebanon who are actually in the Knitting Guild there with me, who's like, we saw them, are you guys involved in this? So they're actually going out into the burbs now. And Temple Emmanuel had them hung up in front of them. Other congregations in the South Hills and North Hills of Pittsburgh are getting stars hung out in front of them. They're going up and down main streets. So they are being spread, and I think it's making people just feel a little bit less alone in the middle of this. Sometimes the only thing you can do in a tragedy is to sit with the bereaved and be with them. And this is our way of sort of doing that from a distance, saying we're with you.
Yeah. I know that, so through Jewish Family Service here in Rochester, that we wrote some notes to people down in Pittsburgh and for the congregation. And some people, it's just their way to grieve is that way, is through writing notes, but it's also for myself. I did that, but then I also was like, I need to do more. So it's more the physical, doing something, and then there's something that is a remembrance of that and is giving to them. So.
Well, there's this powerful message really connected to these art pieces, and co-creator of the project, Alan Brody, said that the Jewish stars are a reminder that an assault on one is an assault on all, and that in the end, love does truly conquer hate. So at a time when anti-Semitic hate crimes are taking place at home and all around the country, I want to know, what type of response do you hope a project like this will create, not just here locally in our community, but around the country?
It's a hard question to answer.
As you said, it's an attack on one is an attack on all, and having the visual reminders of all different communities, of our diversity, is important, and not just in what was thought of as typically a community. This is near the synagogue is mostly a Jewish community, and near a different kind of house of worship is that kind of community. That we're all part of one big community. Like, get our diversity out and parade it down the main street, to remind people that we are all Americans, we are all neighbors, we are all part of the same family.
I think it speaks volumes to the fact that all the different craft materials are used for this project. I know some people use like clay, they use paper, they use yarn, but it's that diversity, and that we're embracing the differences between us all, and that we want to show love, and we want to show that that love wins, and that it casts out hate. So yeah.
Well, phase one of this project was completed in November, as we discussed, and phase two, Hinda tells me, is in the works right now. And this is just continuing to create these Jewish hearts, and to create a more permanent type of a craft memorial for the victims and survivors of Tree of Life. And there's this quote by Dr. King that I love, love, love. And he says, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." So as this phase two continues, and this dialogue really continues through this project, how do you hope that, what kind of conversations do you hope will take place? And I mean conversations that we might not be having right now.
That we talk about us rather than them.
That's good.
There is no them. There's us.
Yeah. I think that the theme of love is one that, and it's just one that keeps resonating with me, and I hope that message is spread throughout. That instead of talking about the hate in the world, that we're just talking about love and how to love each other for our differences, instead of creating that divide.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but a huge thank you to all of our guests for sharing more about this craft activism project, not only impacting our community, but also the entire world. And you can learn more about this on the group's Facebook page at facebook.com. Just do a search for Jewish Hearts for Pittsburgh. Well, if you live in Rochester, you've likely seen posters made by area artist Allison Cote. She's inspired by all things vintage, and she keeps the style alive through hand-drawn elements, retro colors, and lifelike textures that will challenge your notions of digital graphic design. If you're new to her work, then keep your eyes out for more, because as WXXI's Arts in Focus discovered, Allison has found her niche, and she shows no signs of stopping.
Hi, I'm Allison Cote, and I'm a vintage-style graphic designer working in mostly the field of music, posters, album art, band merch. All things 50s, 60s, 70s are inspiring to me. Vintage album art, vintage posters, vintage movie posters, vintage packaging design. Back then, designers had to be really, really, really good. And so a lot of this most simple packaging design and posters were really high-end and had, great composition. And I love the bright colors, and everything was a lot more playful. When working with a client, I will first ask them if they have any particular style or era that they like. I'll have them point out past works of mine that they may be drawn to, or even past works of somebody else, just styles that they like the look of. If I'm working on merch or a logo, I'll do a series of sketches. And if I'm working on a poster, I'll either do a photo poster or an illustrated poster. The photo posters, I just take the photo, I'll make it look kind of vintage, I'll desaturate, add grain to make it look kind of old, And then in some cases I may recolorize the photo to look like a hand-colorized vintage photo. For an illustrated poster, depending on the era, I'll just pull up a lot of illustration from whatever era I'm dipping into and just take little elements from things that I like and try to incorporate it. I will generally hand draw it. I'm not going to actually copy and paste. I have a lot of great brushes and things that replicate the look of charcoal and pencil and ink. Going into this, I did have a fear about what if people think that I'm plagiarizing or just ripping someone off, because I am replicating a very familiar look and I want to get that feel. But my thinking is I'm recreating a feeling of a time that has passed, and these artists who were working in that time period a lot of them are no longer working. I like to think of it as picking up where they left off. Both of my parents are working artists. I grew up in 2 separate houses. Each of them was a single parent who was also a working artist, and so I always believed that it was possible for me to be a working artist someday, and I never really doubted myself. That was an advantage I had, sort of believing early on that I was an artist because I was from the artist family, and I think that sort of helped me hone my craft earlier than some kids who maybe didn't believe that they had that power within them. I jumped around from a lot of different types of art, but I would land on editorial illustration. Oh, that's my purpose, that's what I'm gonna do. Oh wait, I'm bored of this, I think I wanna do oil painting and do festivals and shows, and then oh, I'm bored of this. And I just felt like I was never gonna find my spot. And it wasn't until I started making posters for my fiance's band, Dangerbird, and then other friends of bands, and they kept asking me to make these posters. And so that's when I really found, oh, you know what? This combines everything I love. It's got music, art, my friends and my community, and vintage style design. So good.
For more features from Arts in Focus, head on over to Facebook and search for Arts in Focus. And that wraps up another edition of Need to Know, Rochester's news magazine. I'm your host, Helene B. and Duty Hofer. Thank you for joining me tonight and throughout the weekend here on WXXI TV. Have a great night.